Okay, we're starting up on YouTube Live now, so we're broadcasting.
I don't know if I'm having a computer issue, but in my screen, I've got 4 blocks of Mickey. Is that just me? Is that?
You're very
I
good.
should I log back in, do you think? I'm definitely having a weird issue. Or is there not enough time?
As the board president, Mrs. Brzezowski, you have certain privileges. So, you know, we could certainly have you try to log back in, and I'll watch if you want to give it another try.
Yeah, let me have, because I'm definitely having a weird connection here.
Sure.
By the way,
So
Mickey still only gets 1 vote.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
That's right.
Sorry about that, Louise.
Hello?
Yes, Louise. It looks like on my screen, Louise, you might be logged in twice. I don't know if that's part of the problem, possibly.
Okay, I had to log in on my tablet because my computer went black, so I might be logged in.
Oh,
Okay.
so if she's logged in twice, she still only gets 1 vote.
Yes, right.
It was a good try.
Okay, so I am on my tablet. I don't know, let's give this a try and see how it works out.
It looks good. It looks good.
Okay. Does it still look like I'm logged in twice?
No, actually,
Oh,
I don't
good.
think so.
Good. Okay, I guess we can start. Is everyone here?
Yes, I think so. Everyone who's expected.
Okay, all right. Should we rise and pledge the
Yes.
flag.
Let me share my screen.
Okay. Okay, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can someone do a roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Acker,
Here,
Mr. Azar,
Here.
Dr. Cadman is absent. Mr. Fleming,
Here.
Mr. Medensky,
Here.
Mrs. Pusateri, just absent. Mr. Robeson,
Here.
Mrs. Tierney,
Here,
and Mrs. Brashalski.
Here.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Mann, can you put up the agenda?
Yes, I will. You know, I'm having a hard time, Mrs. Brashalski,
Okay.
exiting this. I don't know why that is.
We're a little glitchy tonight, right?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I think we have it now. Oh, can we see the agenda now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Okay, you're going to start with your superintendent report?
Yes, I will, Mr. Brashalski, thank you. Before I get into the formal report, I just want to let the board know, in talking with Louise, we had the thought that we want to be able to get together in future meetings to meet in person while still having virtual options. We have two proposals. We just received the second one today. So my hope is I'll be able to communicate to the board in the very near future some options about putting some equipment in our boardroom upstairs so that we can get back together again in person while still maintaining our ability to have a high quality presentation to the community virtually. So that said, let me get to the presentation for tonight. The topic I have tonight is a discussion of where we are now instructionally and where maybe we need to go. And I thought as a starter to that, we do a quick review of how we got to where we are today. And we all remember well, it seems like many years ago, that students began the year in all virtual instruction, and we only allowed non-contact fall sports. Then on October 5th, we went to in-person hybrid instruction. I will have to say from that first day to today, it really has been an extraordinary job done by staff, students, and families. And we have been talking about since that time social distancing, mask wearing, and limitations on activities. Then from November through mid-January, we experienced 11 straight weeks of continual increase in COVID transmission in Lackawanna County. We move ahead to mid-December to current. We authorize full participation in winter sports and increases in other extracurricular activities. And from mid-December to current, we have seen decreasing numbers of students attending in-person instruction, especially at the middle school and high school. We see that community transmission trends have improved over the past 2 to 3 weeks. A big milestone along the way in 2021 is that our staff received the Moderna vaccination on the 20th of January, and our second dose is scheduled for the 17th of February. And most concerningly, and this is a topic I will certainly expand upon, students are now experiencing greater detachment and disengagement than at any point during the pandemic. And throughout these slides, I will pull some quotes and some information, but All of the information that I quote and the source documents are included in links. And this presentation is posted already on our website. And I would again encourage, instead of just looking at bits and pieces that I've cherry picked, the full documents are available for all who are interested. I think there's some good information available. But as a summary, to where the year has been, not just at Abington Heights, but in any place, right? Despite the best efforts of education districts and truly the best efforts of our staff and our community, there is no doubt that remote instruction generates large learning gaps and links to higher rates of mental illness while depriving children of formative social and peer relationships. This is especially true in disadvantaged community and vulnerable populations. The losses from extended school closings will likely be felt for generations to come. Schools are essential to the future of our nation and integral to our economy. And from the national broad view to Abington Heights, we will begin by saying that many students are in fact achieving at high levels and are fully engaged in our hybrid program and in their virtual program. But failure rates are high. Failure rates with extremely low grades are very high. We pulled this data from the second quarter grades, which are just being submitted. We're just starting off into the third quarter. We hear every day reports of mental health challenges among our students, and we recognize that large numbers of our students and their families are struggling. And I threw up this as but one example. You don't have to be an expert at Google or very innovative to find reams and reams and reams of evidence in the popular press and in the research that students across the country, and Abington Heights is no exception, are absolutely positively struggling with the detachment and separation that comes from not being present in school. And so it's very fair to ask, what is being done about this? And I want to emphasize everyone, teachers, support staff, administrators, are making great effort to address the challenges faced by our students. For example, at-risk populations are attending 4 days per week. I'm very proud of an effort going on at the high school where, based upon second quarter grades, 100 Abington Heights students have been invited to come back for 4 days per week based upon second quarter grades, and that outreach is occurring to our families. And again, these are students whose grades are not just low or having a little trouble. They are profoundly low in at least one class, and there's very strong indicators of detachment that is taking place. And again, we're trying to reach out to address that issue. And our social workers, which the board has strongly supported in recent years, the addition of social workers, and our counselors are working constantly to address student needs. So that is maybe a snapshot of where we are, both as a nation and in the school district regarding instruction. And so I thought I would just take a look now at current guidance, what people are saying about what is the best way to deliver instruction, right? And so we're all familiar with the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and in substantial spread, the recommendation from PDE is all virtual for high schools and middle schools. The recommendation is all virtual or hybrid for elementary. And we find ourselves, along with 66 of 67 counties, in substantial spread. And I would just offer that, if followed, all high schools and middle schools in the Commonwealth, except in one single county, would not have in-person learning based on PDE's recommendation. Now, they do qualify their recommendation saying it's a local decision and look at your own data and all that, but really, I don't even think the Department of Ed would want pretty much all schools in secondary and middle closing across the state. But that is where they stand, in fairness, and anyone who's interested in the specific recommendations from the source can easily click on that link. So we look beyond the Department of Ed to see what others are saying about opening school for in-person education. And just this week, I think it was, maybe last, but very recently, the American Medical Association issued an editorial written by some very high-level scientists in the Center for Disease Control. And in this article, which again can be accessed here, they say that the preponderance of available evidence from the fall semester has been reassuring insofar as the type of rapid spread that was frequently observed in congregate living facilities or high-density work sites has not been reported in schools. And I use this slide because all of our board members and many members in the community will recall that our greatest fear as we looked at the pandemic back in the summer, in July and August, was that we would see uncontrolled spread of the disease through our buildings, through our classes, through our schools. And we were particularly frightened about the impact that spread might have on vulnerable populations. But with the passage of time and the gathering of data, the American Medical Association is saying that we have not seen what we had feared so much. All right. In similar way, the Brown School of Public Health and the Harvard Center for Ethics point out that evidence gathered this fall around the world and in the US suggests that schools can open even in conditions of wide community spread and achieve low and even near zero transmission in the school building. But it is very important to point out that a recommendation to get students back for in-person learning increases the workload on schools by introducing the need for a robust program of infection control. So again, a very authoritative source saying that it is worth considering, getting back to school. And I would encourage everyone to actually read the article because while these are statements, there's a lot of nuance that I think, is important for us to fully understand. So, that's kind of where we stand and what we read about schools opening, but there are three emerging issues that I think kind of play into this decision that are important for the board to be considering and for the community to consider as together we try to, come to the best possible view of where we're going. Those three emerging issues would be COVID community transition trends, coronavirus variants. A number of teachers have raised this concern, and of course, vaccine. So starting with community transmission trends. Lackawanna, and the news is good here. Lackawanna County positivity rates have declined over the past 4 weeks. Incident rates have declined over the past 2. Now, we would certainly all be more comfortable with longer trends than 2 and 4 weeks, but it is consistent with also in Pennsylvania, we see positivity and incident rates have been in steady decline for the past 6 weeks. And these trends are consistent with national data. So I grabbed the graph. Again, this is national data, but it's consistent with what we're seeing at the local and statewide level in that you could see a gradual increase through the fall, things spiking not long after the holidays. And now we see an encouraging, hopeful, but certainly not definitive trend downward in coronavirus transmission. So the second emerging issue is that of coronavirus variants. And variants of coronavirus have been identified, including in the United States. And by variants, I mean strains of the coronavirus that are more transmissible than the original disease that we have been dealing with since March. And we must acknowledge that the existence of variant coronavirus strains may require significant changes in both planning and operation at local, state, and national levels. But it's equally, I think, important to recognize that there are no indications of the existence of variant strains in our community. And while we'll be alert for these developments and we'll be listening to our experts and guidance, it really, in my estimation, is not an issue for us that would impact our immediate plans moving forward, although ultimately those plans could be disrupted if we see unfortunate developments with respect to the variants. And finally, another emerging issue and important issue for us to consider is that of vaccines. And I came across one of the most encouraging articles about vaccines that I've read, well-sourced, and I have a link here, and I encourage anyone, especially members of our staff, to click on it and read it, and that vaccines are demonstrating not only effectiveness against transmission, but also are providing powerful resistance to serious illness if infected. And so the Moderna vaccine, we read is, and again, here's another link to the source information, is 80.2% effective after one dose and 95.6% effective after the second dose. And while these numbers are very impressive, right, the first article here, the first bulleted point suggests that these are actually not the most important and most valuable numbers. The most valuable numbers is not that you have 100% protection against infection, but rather, should individuals who are vaccinated become infected, their chances of experiencing, the profoundly serious illness that we've all witnessed in this pandemic are greatly reduced. So again, these combination of these two developments, particularly with the Moderna vaccine, are most encouraging, and I would encourage people to take a look at those articles. And also so encouraging is the fact that over 400 members of the Abington Heights School District staff received the first dose of the Moderna vaccine on the 20th of January, and the second dose is now scheduled for the 17th of February. And I really must, and I know that I speak for all in this, express thanks to Dr. Donna Ije and Mr. Eric Puzzi for their assistance in making this possible. However, we must all bear in mind that while we're very excited about where we stand with the vaccines, students under 18 years old do not receive vaccinations. And so with that said, and with that information as background, I put together what in my mind might be some guiding statements. Again, these are just my own thoughts as we look to address the very challenging concerns of the methods of our instruction. First, there is no substitute to in-person interactions among students and staff. We cannot replicate the benefits of full-time, in-person school attendance with the current hybrid model. Secondly, as has been the case throughout the pandemic, we must continually evaluate our approach and adjust our course based on the best information available to us. Third, we must be transparent for all stakeholders. And finally, there is no easy way out. There's no free lunch, right? A decision for a full return, it must acknowledge the added risk of transmission in school buildings. But on the flip side of the equation, a decision to remain status quo acknowledges the added risk of mental health challenges for our students. And so again, these are just some thoughts that I had as far as how we might approach these challenging questions. So, some challenges with full return. All virtual options must continue to be available for students. Social distancing outside of the hybrid model becomes more difficult, and adjustments to instructional delivery may become necessary. So I'd like to just take a moment to look at each of these three components, right? So with respect to all virtual, some parents and students will require an all virtual option for a wide range of reasons, likely for an extended period of time. We also must recognize that we have been severely impacted with the unfair costs of cyber schools during this period. And with respect to all virtual, those options are currently available to students, but we certainly must continue in providing those opportunities as they are or in some alternate form. As far as social distancing, again, we will all remember, to the extent possible, maintain a distance of 6 feet between people. That's really the guidance that we get from the CDC. I should have added the link. I'll have the link up on the presentation shortly later tonight. Currently, 6 feet of social distance is achieved in most classrooms. We do, however, have numerous classrooms providing specialized services that have students and staff who are less than 6 feet apart. Students receiving district transportation, our buses and our vans, absolutely are less than 6 feet apart. And students participating in winter sports, in many instances, far from having 6 feet, they are simply in full contact with other students. And I just want to make a note here, and I don't know if this will be helpful or not to consider, but the board will remember the board president and the superintendent, we had to sign an attestation, and that attestation surrounded when we open and when we close schools, and also addressed wearing masks at all times. What was not included in that attestation is anything about maintaining 6 feet at all times. And I raise that just for the purpose of consideration to the extent that it may or may not be helpful. Also regarding social distancing, many classes currently in our hybrid model have 11 to 13 students attending in person. With a full return, that means some classes will increase into the mid-20s if everyone in fact does return. And a significant reduction of social distancing resulting from a full return of students is a core consideration. This is our challenge, and it has been from the beginning. The idea of social distancing in class, and the whole purpose behind the hybrid model was to allow us to maintain the social distancing. And again, this is a core issue for us to consider. And then finally, for the 3 areas of challenge, instructional delivery. Currently, all virtual elementary students have their own virtual teacher. So if you decide to be in all virtual in elementary, you have your own dedicated teacher. Hybrid elementary students participate 3 days from home and 2 days in school using webcams and Google Meet. They're connected to their teacher physically when they're in school and virtually when they're home. And all virtual and hybrid students in the middle and high school participate 3 days from home and 2 days in school using webcams and Google Meet. There is no dedicated option for our high school and middle school students for virtual. Whether you're all virtual or hybrid, the modality of instruction is always the same. So under instructional delivery, current hybrid model requires middle and high school teachers to deliver instruction to 2 groups of students simultaneously. And while our teachers are doing great, this is a very hard thing that they're being asked to accomplish. And one of our challenges is to consider how teachers might be freed up from the current constraints of the hybrid model. It's not an easy question. There are no answers on the tip of anyone's tongue, but there has to be some recognition that when teachers are asked to do 2 things, it's very hard to do the thing they do well most, and that is, teach the students who are in front of them in the classroom. So again, this is an area of challenge and an area that will be required for our focus. And so next steps for the board's consideration, and these are 3 thoughts that I had, right? First, I think there might be value in engaging parents in a survey indicating a number of things, but for sure, their willingness to participate in a full return and their level of concern with associated reductions in social distancing. By gathering that data, it will help administration plan for what might or might not be next. Secondly, it'd be important to engage our dedicated staff to gain their perspective and expertise regarding if and how best a full return can be accomplished. And again, based upon the board's consideration, I would respectfully suggest that we have a plan in hand for the board's consideration and potential action at our next meeting on the 17th of February. And so, that concludes my formal report. So I'm going to stop sharing. And again, thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Brochalski, to present.
I have a question. This is Mike. So Dr. Mann, you had mentioned it early in your presentation, something about, I forgot the exact phrase, but decreased engagement and something else of students, and you know that's a fact. Could you elaborate on that, and how have you measured that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's been multiple, thank you, Mr. Fleming, for the question. It's a critical one for this conversation. There have been multiple measures of our measuring this. Probably the best one that we have seen is that of second quarter grades at our high school. And we have seen, surprising isn't strong enough, I think maybe even shockingly high numbers of students who are failing, but not failing with the 68 because they had maybe 2 bad math tests, right? They're failing with 50s and 20s, which is a very strong indication that it's not a matter of the material, but it's a matter of the engagement. And that was so severe, it prompted Mr. Snyder very wisely to say, we have to reach out to our students. And we invited, with attendance being lower now, we invited 100 of those students to come back, and we're talking to their families and saying, look, you have to come back 4 days a week. We need to be able to sit you down for mandatory tutoring, and we need to be able to do the great things that our high school staff does to help people who are in this situation. We also know anecdotal, and similar circumstances occur at the middle school with respect to grading. And we have many, many, many anecdotal reports of students who are simply struggling for a variety of reasons, and not least of which, actually perhaps foremost of which, would be those reasons related to their mental health. So from a number of sources, both quantitative and qualitative, we are observing that at this point, that students and families are struggling.
Mike, this is Greg Medensky.
Mickey?
We talk about social distancing, and I know the state gives us guidelines for social distancing. And if, again, let's face it, we're going to have difficulty time adhering to 6 feet. And we know that. Has there been anything from the state saying, is there anything that would penalize us for not being 6 feet, or is it all guidelines and it really is up to us?
No, Mr. Medensky, there's nothing that penalizes us. And within the CDC regulations, right, there is room for flexibility. That said, right, I've been able to visit classes, and I've seen, elementary classes of 13 students. And, if 13 were to go to 26, that's a tight room. It is. And so, there are many districts that are in 5 days per week. There's nothing that says there's a penalty per se, but we also have to, think about making sure that we're making the right decision with respect to the health and safety of our students. And again, there's no easy answer to this. And again, many of our classes will be fine, but we have some areas where, social distancing could be something of a problem.
And a follow-up, if we do go to back, which everybody wants to, what, until everybody gets vaccinated, or at the most part, the majority of people gets vaccinated, what are we going to do to continue to clean classrooms and continue to clean? Do we have a plan in place? Are we developing that plan?
We do. First and foremost, I can tell you, and I know you actually had this question in an earlier conversation. We are focused on cleaning for sure. We also have been focused very much on making sure that our buildings are ventilated properly. Anytime that we have a report of a positive case in a classroom, our custodians are changing the filters in the room. We're making sure that our filters are the highest possible grade that they can be, while still maintaining appropriate airflow. We've read that we need good filters. Having filters that are too good actually prevents airflow and can be a negative impact. We currently are flushing our buildings with fresh air in the morning and in late. We have the air circulators on, even though usually we try not to circulate a lot of air in the winter because it's cold. We put that aside and have our air circulators on high. We're losing money with respect to heat, but we're pushing through lots of airflow in our buildings. Again, our cleaning continues. So, we are doing, I think, a lot of work to try to maintain the appropriate environment. Our students are and staff are very, very compliant, completely compliant in the wearing of masks. We still try to learn every day. Just today we had a discussion wanting, bus windows to be open 3 inches to, have airflow in the bus without freezing students as they go this time of year. So we continue to do whatever we can to maintain the safest possible environment for our students, and we're certainly open for suggestions at all times from all places.
Mike, have there been any instances of transmission on the buses since they're not maintaining the social distance?
No, we have done.
Have we had?
Has
that been an issue?
Yeah, we've had to do some significant quarantining on buses because it's probably the area in the district where we have the least social distancing. So if we receive word of a positive case, one of the first things we check is whether that individual rode the bus or not. All of our administrators have electronic access to the seating charts on the school buses. The next step we do, so we identify potential close contacts, we pull the video, then we have our administrators look to identify students who are in the vicinity of the individual close contact, and then we do a lot of quarantining. And we've had instances where we've had 8, 9 people because of one incident on a school bus quarantined, including the driver. So while we've not seen any transmission, it is an issue that concerns us and that we monitor very closely.
Mike, what is the percentage of our students taking the bus transportation now?
I don't have a percentage. One of the problems we face is that we do not have as many drivers as we want and as we need. And we've actually had to consolidate some runs, which increases the number of students on the school bus. So, if someone says we're doing social distancing at all times in all places, we're not. And school buses and high needs classrooms are 2 examples of where it's not happening. And again, we've not seen transmission as a result of it, but it's always something that keeps us alert. And part of the context of the discussion and why I raise those is, are we going to expand the areas where social distancing is not 6 feet? Not are we going to create new ones, because the reality is those circumstances already exist in some finite areas in the district.
I have a few questions. I'd like to break it out into the 3 different levels: elementary, middle, and high school. Our elementary students, a lot of our classrooms have more than in the 20s, 25, 26. So if the goal is to open full time, and the surveys come back from the elementary families that 95% of the students want to come back, have you used every classroom to be able to use as actual classroom time, gyms, cafeterias in all buildings, so that we can follow the social distancing?
Yes, we're looking at how to space our students. The issue, though, is not so much that of unused classrooms, because if we were to say take a particular class and spread them out, we would still need a teacher, and that's the problem. We would need an extra teacher if we were to have an extra class, and teachers now, even long-term subs, are in very, very short supply. So I know our principals are working on plans, and I am not here saying that we have a plan to address it, but I think it is fair to say that in a full return, we will have less social distancing in our elementary classrooms.
So are you also saying that if we do go back full time, that we will have a shortage of teachers?
No, I think we're okay with our teachers. But if we were to say want to further divide a large class into 2 classes, it would be at that point we would have some very serious trouble being able to get extra teachers.
I'm noticing tonight on our agenda that we're approving approximately 10 long-term subs.
Yes.
Are those for the remaining of the year?
That is correct. Many of them, Mrs. Tierney, were appointed for the first semester. And then now, as the first semester is coming to a close, they're doing really good work, and we want to reappoint them because they're very much needed for the second semester. I
personally would like to see us go back full-time, all students, Obviously, all students whose families want them back full-time. As soon as we are finished with our second dose and the district is ready to go running. But in order to do that, there has to be all kinds of different things in place. So I'm happy to hear about the ventilation. I'm happy to hear about as many teachers as possible to be working in all the buildings. Is it possible for us to still hire some more long-term subs so we can have a little better opportunity for our students to have smaller class sizes in the
Yes,
elementary?
Yes, Mrs. Chair, the answer is most definitely yes. And our principals are working very hard on that. I will tell you the first spot, if we can get some more long-term subs where we want to look, and that is the board will recall, we've had reading teachers and support teachers who were pressed to service, doing great work in a hard time into the classroom, right? And we are recognizing, just as we did then, that we want those teachers to be supporting the students who are at risk and who are challenging. So the first area for us to fill, to the extent we can find more high quality long-term substitute candidates, is to put those individuals in places where we can free up people to offer additional supports to students who are at risk. So in short answer to your question, yes, we could use them, and we'll be bringing them to the board to request that the board approve their hire.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think at this time we can give the public an opportunity to address the board. Anyone who wishes to address the board, please raise your hand. Remember that you have 3 minutes to speak, and please state your name and where you're from. I'm having a hard time seeing. Okay, so Stephanie Luciani.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Stephanie Luciani from South Abington. The first thing tonight is I would like to ask on behalf of the public that the remind be instated for board meetings. It encourages a lot of public participation, and many parents have voiced questions over why this practice of sending out that remind message was discontinued. Secondly, well in line with what Dr. Mann presented, I really encourage everyone to take a look at the children in the district and attempt to comprehend what's been taken from them these last 11 months. I have a 9-year-old who missed the end of his 3rd grade year. He's now missed out on nearly his entire last year as an elementary student. And quite frankly, he's given up. 2 weeks ago, he turned in a paper to his teacher that was to be an essay with 1 sentence written. My 9-year-old, an A student, gave up. And I can't blame him. As his parents, we can't focus on our children succeeding in school in this environment because we need to focus on their mental health. It's unacceptable that I'm in a position to need to speak in a public forum about the mental health of my 3 children under the age of 10. But as a family with 2 working parents who work outside the home, we've decided that our children's health and well-being are more important than forcing them in front of a computer 3 days a week, while their parents attempt to keep their heads above water for work, childcare, and managing a home. School districts such as Delaware Valley have been in 100% in learning, and sports have been played since the beginning of the school year. There are many districts that prove it can be done. The burden that's placed on these children to carry is unreasonable, and it's time we put an end to it. Why do our children need to be failing to be considered to be back in school more days a week? I can't understand that. I encourage you all to set a date for full-time in-person return to learning. CDC guidance, there was a spokeswoman who spoke today that said that teachers do not need to be 100% vaccinated to safely return. So I encourage you all to make it as quickly as possible. There are babies, the little people that we brought into this world, and we settled in this district hoping it would help them succeed. And right now it's not. So please do something to try to fix this and help our children before it's too late. And thank you a million times over to our teachers. Just thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Julie Manwaring.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Julie Manwaring from South Abington Township. I have 2 in the high school. One is a senior, one is in 10th grade. I would just echo what Stephanie just said. The toll on our students has been beyond what we can even describe. I don't think the impact will be fully known until years to come. And this isn't just parents that work outside the home. I work inside the home, but I'm working many hours a week, and I'm getting to watch firsthand, just as Stephanie said, my student give up. The lack of engagement has been so detrimental mentally, emotionally, socially, and of course, educationally, which is why I'm talking to you tonight. That's your job. Your job was the education part. Now, I know you were handed almost an impossible situation when this started, but now you have all the pieces to get us back as quickly as possible. So what I'd like to address is, as Dr. Mann said at the beginning of this, that there's no substitute for in-person learning. We all agree that. I haven't heard one person disagree with that statement. So that being said, we're approaching now the 1-year mark of not giving our students that at Abington Heights. I just ask that as you make these decisions, please treat all students equally, not just elementary getting favor over the high schoolers. I heard a rumor that that may happen, and I did see in your presentation, Dr. Mann, that there is that idea that elementary could be looked at coming back at a different time. I just ask that as you make these decisions, please do not treat my 10th grader or my 12th grader that are getting ready for college, building college transcripts, as less important. Their education is less important than a student in 4th grade. They all deserve your very best and deserve the education that Abington Heights is always given. Secondly, I ask that you look at statistical data across all those students. Are grades dropping more significantly in your high school than in your elementary school? Mental health reports coming back to your guidance counselors. Please look at that data, know where the biggest impact is happening as you get feedback. And finally, I would just like to say that you were asked about the social distancing guidelines if you get penalized. One of your board members just asked that. And Dr. Mann, I believe you said that nothing penalizes us at this point, and there is room for flexibility. But I would like to make as my final point, you are being penalized. Abington Heights was a leader in Northeastern Pennsylvania, award-winning school. You are being penalized as grades drop, as your reputation drops. Test scores are being affected. You can't get that back, at least not for this year. So I believe you're not just talking about my individual student, which is why I'm speaking, for my child, but for the reputation of your district. So if you don't care about my children, care about the district and your reputation, to please, as soon as possible, get back to the excellence of education Abington Heights has always stood for. Get the kids back in school. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say that any decision we have made is not been because we don't care. So I do believe every one of us cares very much about every student and the district. Courtney Denyon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Mahan, and the board for listening. I am Courtney Degnan, and I live in Clark Summit. Thank you all also for listing the concerns as well as the options of how to better serve the students in our district, and for my own 2 children. And I just want to start by saying that my own son had surgery in December, and I appreciated the fact that we had the virtual option, knowing that it was the safest option for him prior to his surgery to have both he and my daughter home. And then my daughter returned to the classroom on his surgery date in early December, and my son followed after the holiday while continuing to heal, because I felt it was safe for them to return. Now, with what is being proposed, I fear that students will be brought back in an unsafe setting where more students will be together, and I will need to pull them back out. This is where I want to focus your attention. Those students that were back for 2 days a week in a hybrid model, and now will need to go to the virtual setting. I've been fortunate enough to get the COVID vaccine. I've been working with my students for 4 days a week because they are students with special needs. However, this vaccine is not 100% effective, and I am at high risk, extremely high risk. And I've been working in person since the start of the school year. My husband has not been able to get this vaccine because he's not in the category to receive it and is placed at higher risk with my children being placed back with more children coming into their classroom. Asymptomatic students are among us. They are spreading the virus. If we were to test children, it would show that they do have the virus, similar to how sports teams are testing. With this information, is it fair for me to have to pull my child out of school for their safety and our family's safety when their mental health is just as important as everyone else's? My children too struggled when they were learning virtually, and now I feel they would be forced back into the virtual setting. I applaud the resources you listed in your presentation. I applaud you for bringing students back for 4 days a week when they have shown the need. I applaud you for having our students with special needs in the classroom for 4 days a week and inviting our high school students back that require more support and looking at that data. I applaud our social workers, our counselors, our nurses, our teachers for reaching out to those that are struggling at home in the virtual setting. I feel after reaching out as a parent that parents need to take the next steps to help their children. There are counselors that can help. Our school is not the only place where our children can receive help for mental health. I feel having our children in school for 2 days a week is better than 4 when it is unsafe for parents and community members that are not vaccinated, as well as those that are at high risk that work in schools. Although 400 staff members were vaccinated, many were not due to other factors. Digging out of this pandemic is still happening. Please do not rush students back. Please consider this when making your decision for what is best for all students, all of our staff, and all of our community members. Mental health can be helped outside of the school, along with the support of our school staff. This was not Abington Heights that caused this pandemic. It is not their fault that we have been out of school or going through this unprecedented time. Our community members and all of our students live in a wonderful district, and we should applaud them for all of the work that they have done for our students. However, we need to make sure that we stick through this long haul of this pandemic and do what's best for all students. And in my case, for my own two, they would need to stay home for those other 2 days so that they can be in a smaller classroom and a safer classroom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Degman, thank you not only for your remarks, but for the great work that I know you're doing with your students, with our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahan.
Tim Charles?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Tim Charlie, and I have 2 children at Clark Summit Elementary in 4th and 2nd grade. I wanted to take this time to express my extreme disappointment in where we are currently with the learning system we have in place in the school district. We moved specifically to this area because of the reputation of the school district, and we are truly regretting that decision based on the response to COVID and the toll that it has taken on our children and our family. I do not understand how the data being presented today is only now becoming a focus after there have been so many families trying to communicate the struggles they have been facing for such a long period of time. I do not understand how my children will be ready for the next grade or be prepared for transitioning to middle school with only now discussing a more permanent return to school for the remainder of the year. I do not understand how my children will be able to absorb all of the material that was originally organized for a full 5-day school week in 4 days. Lastly, I do not understand how similar school districts or private schools who are within a close geographic proximity have been able to accomplish this from the beginning or much sooner than our district. While I understand the challenges that everyone faces in these decisions that have been made, the damage has been done, and the families in this district will feel the resonating repercussions for years to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all. Is anybody seeing any other names on the list that wish to speak? Dr.
Did we hear from Julie Manwaring?
Yes,
Yes.
there's one
We did.
more Waverly parent that just
Yes,
popped up.
one more, Mr. Brashalski, Waverly. Shall we, one more?
Sure.
Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, and this is Waverly parent, and perhaps you could identify yourself, please, and you could begin your remarks.
Hi, I'm Jill Morosky, and I have two kids in Waverly Elementary. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. I missed just a minute or two of the beginning, but I did notice in Dr. Mahan's presentation, I felt like I saw it say that the Pennsylvania Department of Ed and Department of Health are recommending substantial counties to all stay virtual. In my understanding that Governor Wolf on January 7th asked that change. My understanding was he said that elementary schools specifically, that his goal was to get them back in. At the very least, they should be hybrid for spring semester, and regardless, to even if they are substantial level in a substantial county. And my other thing too, I noticed that it said that the vaccines are only for 18 and older. And my understanding is the Pfizer one can be given as young as 16. Not that there's a plethora of vaccine out there and not that everybody can get it, but if we're basing this off of information, I just worried that is the information accurate from Governor Wolf in the state website? And also I know so much has gone into this and I know so much work has been done and I appreciate so much that the kids are there. But I'll second what the first caller said, that they certainly suffer being at home. And there's so many ways that they miss out socially, so many milestones, so many just little day by day things. And I certainly want to see them back at school. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into it, but I feel like I can't be the only parent on the call right now, hoping for dates to be thrown around, hoping for some goals to be thrown around, and hoping, that things get back so that the kids can be in school where they should be.
Yes, and I would address you by name, but I didn't catch your name. But I think it's very, very important. If people could understandably be confused with the reporting that took place when it appeared that the state was saying bring all the elementary kids back. On the presentation, which is linked to the website if you wanted to check, there's a link that goes right to the state guidance, and the state is saying it's their recommendation that all secondary and middle schools be all virtual, no in person, and that elementary only be in hybrid as one option, but they also recommend potentially virtual. So that is not the fault of anyone who heard it, because in reading the paper, I was surprised myself. But when you actually go to the guidance, you'll see that the state is in fact not recommending full-time in-person for elementary, and is clearly recommending virtual for pretty much everybody else.
Okay, so Dr. Mahan, did you say you will be initiating a parent survey and meeting with the teachers to move forward? And can we expect that in the next few days? I mean, when will that survey go out? Oh, you're muted, I'm sorry.
No, I got it. Yes. No, our intention is to do a survey to gather the results and then have as much information compiled with recommendations to present at the next board meeting. And so we're currently working on surveys to try to capture the right information, but as a matter of a couple of days, we'll not have it in a couple of days. It just will take time, if nothing else, to collect that information. But certainly as it becomes available, we'll be sharing it.
Okay. Mr. Azar?
Dr. Mahan, so the purpose of the survey is obviously you want to gather as much information as possible. If the survey comes back and there are many families who want to take advantage of in-person, and that puts us inside of social distance, do you have a view today based on a lot of the data that you laid out, which is compelling, to potentially put kids inside of 6 feet of social distance because of all the articulations that have been coming from a lot of people in the community, and obviously a lot of the literature that's out there and the risks to the kids? Do you have a view yet on that?
Mr. Azar, I will tell you, not to dodge the question, I had a view that we should not play contact sports in the fall, and then more data came out that said, disease does not spread as much outdoors in fall sports. I was deathly concerned of COVID ripping through buildings, even with social distancing. It has not happened. I am uncomfortable with 26 kids in a classroom. I will say that. Having looked at 13 and seeing what 26 looks like, that's a bad look, and I think it'd be uncomfortable. However, 6 feet in all times at all places as we have it now, I think we could relax those efforts and achieve the benefit of having more kids in school. And part of our conversation in the coming weeks and part of the board's conversation is how do we address those instances where classrooms are really going to be packed? And that's a real situation. So that'll be part of our planning. In the end, we're going to have to make some very challenging decisions. I'm very interested in what the community and the parents have to say about it, because if we see that by eliminating the hybrid and having more people in the class, that drives elementary students out. Again, that's a very legitimate consideration that Mrs. Degnan raised. And so I think we need to see the data, continue to look at this as best we can. Our administrators need to walk the building to see what options or alternatives we can come up with. And then with the totality of the information before us, we need to put something together, share it with the board, share it with the community, continue this conversation, and then hopefully come to a difficult decision, regardless of where we fall, on what we do next.
Dr. May, is it fair to ask parents if they would be willing to transport their students if we were to go back? Because I'm concerned that we don't have the bus drivers now with a hybrid model. And I'm not really sure if we were to pack the buses, if we all return to school 5 days, I don't know how we could transport them. And if we had help from parents in transporting their students, it would probably minimize that.
Yes, we have continually asked that, Mrs. Brashowski, from the beginning and now on through. And many people are riding the buses because they need rides. And so, yes, in answer to your question, but that is something that we've continued to ask. And people who are riding the bus now, many of them just really need the ride home. But that will be part of our planning and our conversation in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, because transportation can become a really big issue if we don't have the bus drivers and. Okay.
Very definitely, 100% true.
We still have 2 more people to talk.
Oh, we do? Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at this little tablet and I don't have the benefit of seeing everything I normally do, so I apologize. I had that issue. And can somebody see the names?
Yep.
Tom Lavelle and Nancy Del Rios.
Okay, so we'll go with Mr. Lavelle. It's
Sure.
at the top there. Wait, we lost Mr. Lavelle. Maybe Mrs. De Los Rios. Okay.
Good evening, Nancy De Los Rios, Glenburn Township. Just wondering if there's ways to glean information from other areas. The other parent mentioned Del Val, which is a very similar school district in size. Are we, Mr. Mahan, are you constantly having interaction with other areas? Are you learning? Are you gleaning? There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If people are doing this successfully, then we should be able to do it successfully as well. That's all.
No, thank you for the question, Mrs. De Los Rios. And yes, I'm in contact with many places that are working, having 4 or more of a full return than we are. And many are having success, but there are challenges along the way. I suspect that if places are true to quarantining as they should be under the regulations, a lot more quarantining will take place under a full return than under our hybrid model. Right now, we completely expect that in the vast majority of our classrooms, if there's a positive case, there are no close contacts and everyone remains in the classroom. If we have a full return, we would fully expect close contacts, exactly the opposite. We will have close contacts in the classroom. And in some of the research that we presented earlier in the year, it was suggested that if a district comes back full time, much of the added gains in instructional time will be lost by increases in quarantining as a result of close contacts and a lack of social distancing. So while many places say, oh, we're back and everything is fine, it's not. And there are absolute trade-offs. And one of the things that I've said as a guiding principle is that we must continually monitor our decisions and adjust when appropriate. So if, for example, we come back full time and we find that we're just quarantining everybody out of the building, then we may have to say, look, we have to have the flexibility to go back to the hybrid. In the same way, if we go back full time and we see that, look, this is working, we're not seeing transmission, as we are not seeing transmission on buses or transmission in our classrooms where social distancing is not taking place, then we can move forward with greater confidence. So I don't think there's a single place that says we've got this and it's flawless. I think there's a continuum. I think we're on the continuum more toward in-person than many, but I think it is also fair and appropriate at this time for us to say, given our experiences, can we take some further steps down that road of getting our kids back together in our classrooms?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lavelle? Did we lose Tom?
Hi, hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hi there, Tom Lavelle, President, Abington Heights Education Association of Waverly Township. I did want to begin by echoing the sentiments of appreciation and gratitude for the arranging of the vaccinations for the professional staff at Abington Heights. It took a lot of work behind the scenes, and to all of those that were involved, much appreciation is due to those parties. So on the behalf of the teachers, nurses, and counselors, thank you very much. The second thing that I'd like to say is I am definitely appreciative, of course, of the opportunity to have teacher input be part of the discussion in terms of any potential change to mode of instruction. And on that topic of teacher input, I'm also hopeful that going forward at public sessions of the Board of Directors, that my public commentary may be also met with similar interaction that is often met with many of our public commenters whose points are just as important and whose perspectives matter just as much. And so I'm very much hoping to have the voice of the teachers, nurses, and counselors be much more a part of the shared decision-making and a collaborative approach to getting through this pandemic. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I do agree that it is very important, as Dr. Maina is suggesting, that the teachers have input as well as the parents. So I am looking forward to hearing all the different perspectives. Okay, I believe that's all, right? There are no others? Okay, Dr. Maina, I think we can return to our agenda. I believe you are muted.
I'm sharing my screen and should, with any luck, have it. Oh. You know, here I'm having a little trouble again getting out. There it is. Okay. And hopefully everyone can see. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so Dr. Mann with the personnel report.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Pachalski. Under letter A, we have the personnel report, and unless there are objections, perhaps I could ask the board to take it as a consent motion, where we respectfully request the board to approve those individuals listed under A, numbers 1 through 15.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? So Dr. May, it looks like we've had some success retaining long-term substitutes. I think we were having an issue with that.
Yeah, well, Mrs. Pachalski, we're still looking for some long-term subs. I'm very pleased to say that, yes, many of these listed tonight are being retained. They so well and so successfully worked for us through the first semester. As board members will recall, often long-term subs are hired on a semester basis, and we are so very happy to have them continue to join us for the spring semester.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the one EDR position, that freshman football coach. Is that for the past fall or is that for next fall?
It's actually, I think, ongoing, Mrs. Tierney. We have our teams getting together. I know our athletic director is still holding out hope of reaching out to other teams to see what we can pull off for our fall sports. So I think that would be not for the fall of 2021, but rather for ongoing activities. Again, I don't want to create false expectations, but I know some efforts are made, and I know that teams are meeting and those activities are still ongoing.
Well, that's great to hear that the football program is still making all attempts to reach their football athletes, knowing that their season was, really cut out.
Yes.
And what a fine student athlete that this young man is, that was an Abington Heights football player. So it's great to see him giving back. So yeah, thanks for that.
Okay.
Louise, your motive.
Can we have roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson, Yes. Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brashalski.
Yes.
7 yes.
And I'm very pleased to request the board to consider a motion to hire Dr. Margaret Vitale as Assistant Superintendent under the terms and conditions contained in item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? When will she start, Dr. Mann? Did we have a start date?
Yes, she is still working with her current employer to come up with the date. I know if it's up to her, it will be absolutely as soon as possible, but her current employer knows a good thing when they have it for sure. And we're hoping it will be sooner rather than later.
Okay. Can we have roll call?
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
No.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Mrs. Brashalski.
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no.
And Mrs. Brashalski, if I may, if I could maybe stop sharing, I know that Dr. Vitale is with us tonight on the meeting, and perhaps may I call on her just to offer a word or hello to the board and the community?
Sure.
Okay. Now there are so many here. I have to find her. Here we are. Here we are. So, Dr. Vitale, I think you're on. And congratulations! It is so good to have you.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say hello to everybody and thank you for this opportunity. I am incredibly eager and excited to start working in the Abington Heights school community so that we can make sure that our students continue to excel. So thank you, and I'm eager to start, and I promise I will give you a start date as soon as they give me one.
Oh, great.
Okay,
Welcome. Welcome aboard.
Yes, yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Vitale.
Yep. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see
See
you.
you as well.
All right, now you'll get your first demotion from panelist. Okay. Take care. All right.
Bye. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep, thank you.
And then I can go back and share the agenda. There we are.
Okay, at this time, we offer another opportunity for public comment. If there is anyone from the audience who would like to address the board again, please raise your hand. And let me see if I can see the list, if there is anyone new. I do not I think Tom Lavelle, that was from before, right? So,
believe so.
Mhm.
okay. At this time, I guess that's it. No more.
That's it.
Wow, that was
I have one question.
Mhm.
Dr. Mahan, has the heavy snowfall helped the turf situation?
Well,
Situation.
yeah, I haven't been up there checking. It's been a little cold and deep with the snow, but I can't imagine it's not. If nothing else, Mrs. Tierney, the bad things that have been happening there will be more apparent than they were before.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll
Good
see
night.
you 2
Good night.
weeks. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.